lot to that type of students in Canada, because you know that Canada is a country of immigration with a lot of students, people coming from all over the world and having to learn English as you have to, as you are doing now. So he has already held a lot of seminars for my students, and my students have always appreciated him very much. So I think you will very soon develop a confidence with him. Please be free to ask him questions, to raise your hand, and it will be at your disposal, I'm sure. Today's conference is about, it's a projection of slides, a presentation of slides about landscapes. And the theme of landscapes will join the 3 seminars that Professor Redfern is going to hold for us. So I ask you to keep silent. Another thing that I have already told the Quinta D, that I haven't told the Quinta C yet, please, I'm trying, also for those who are weaker, I would like you to be very careful to this, to pay a lot of attention to this seminar, to the 3 seminars, so that in class we are going to take a test focused specifically and just on the material that you're going to learn with Professor Redfern. So please pay a lot of attention, because it's going to be also very useful for your scholastic, not only for your souls, but also for your marks.
I will also prepare for you a sheet with all the main ideas in very brief summary form, so you can review your own notes as well as yours. All right. This is the book with which you are very familiar.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. But most of you know what this book is, and some of the ideas from this book, particularly the theme of romantic nature, are going to be referred to in my introductory lecture, and next week when you come to see another slideshow about a famous Canadian writer and a group of painters. Today, however, we are going to give you an overview. In other words, we're going to give you a very grand panorama of what Canada's landscape is like, how it affects the way we think about it, and how it also ties into the way our artists painted it and wrote about it. Now, from this book, you are very aware that the Romantic imagination looked at nature in a very different way. They looked at it from a very individual point of view, and they looked at it through their emotions rather than their reason. The Romantics also had the idea of the sublime. As you remember, this was a term that was used in the textbook. And the sublime is something that makes you feel so strongly, you are so astonished by what you see, that frequently the emotions that arise in you are emotions of wonder as well as fear. What you're going to see today are many pictures of a country that is very wild. We have much wilderness in Canada. When we start the slideshow, the journey of pictures itself, you will be quite surprised by some of the things we're going to show you. Now first, the theme of the lecture today is landscape. What is landscape? We have many different landscapes in Canada. As much as we live in a very large country, as you will see in a moment from the map when we start our slideshow, we have many different climate zones. We have a country that goes from 2 major oceans, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And as you can see here, it's is an enormous country, and here is Italy sitting inside of it. So you can get an idea of the huge scale. Down here is where I live, at the very tip of this little toe of Calabria. So you can see that the scale of landscape is very different. So because of the differences and because of the enormity, the immensity, the largeness of this country, we have very differing points of view on how we react to it. First of all, let's give a definition of landscape. Most of us think of landscape as the countryside. We go out into the hills, or we go out onto the waters and the mountains in Canada, and we say, this is our landscape. This is the countryside that surrounds where we live. But we can define landscape as in a number of different ways. First, landscape is a place where we live and work. So we have our town or our city landscape. Where I live in Toronto, there are 4 million people, and my city landscape is a series of many streets with many trees and many shops. So it's a very crowded city landscape. When I leave the city, I leave behind what we call the social landscape. The social landscape essentially is about people. It's about the society that I live in. The people that I walk on the street with. The people that I live beside. The people that I work with. These people, as part of my social landscape, are people who work, who vote, who have ideas, who run shops, who teach school. These people in my social landscape come from many different cultures, because Canada is essentially an immigrant culture. We are a young country, but you can see from this that we have many, many different faces from different backgrounds. We have our native peoples who were the original Canadians. We have Canadians from the Far East. We have Canadians from the Caribbean. And of course, most of all, we have many Italians who live in Toronto. So we have a mixture of all kinds of people in our social landscape. These people that you just saw the pictures of shape our institutions. They create our art. They build our technology. They influence our politics. And as individuals and as groups of individuals, they define the choices that make up what Canada is and what it will become. So we could say that the social landscape is a living landscape of people. We have one other living landscape, and we'll come to that in a moment. This is called the natural landscape. You've heard about this from your lectures in this book. We sometimes call this nature. In Canada, nature has many other terms. Wilderness is one of the key terms. But a natural landscape is one that surrounds us. It can include a city, but most often it is a landscape that goes beyond the cities where we live. And in Canada, these landscapes are many. And they are very, very big. When you live in a country that is very big, your ideas change. Your attitudes are shaped by the size of your country. For example, If I wish to drive and drive for 8 hours a day without stopping, maybe I have a coffee on the way, but I drive at 130 kilometers an hour. If I drive from Toronto to the Rocky Mountains, it takes me 4 days and 4 nights. And to a Canadian, this idea of time is very different from, say, an Italian person's idea of time. The geography and the space affects the way I think about how much time I'm going to have to spend, how much time will I have left over. Once, before there were jet planes, to travel across Canada took a very, very long time because it was so big. And you could see that from that first map that we showed you, the enormity of the country. What is Canada? Canada is a geographic shape. It has lakes, it has mountains, it has 2 oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. But Canada is also a state of mind. When people come to Italy, tourists like to come and see not Italian people. They come for the state of mind. Italy, the country of beautiful food. Italy, the country of beautiful buildings. They take little souvenirs with them, postcards and pictures, but they don't take postcards and pictures of people. They take them of buildings and trees. They take little photographs of the state of mind. If you were to say to anyone who's traveled in Italy as a tourist, well, what is Italy like? Oh, it's beautiful. There's lots of sunshine. The buildings are beautiful. Oh, it's so old. There's so many old things.
So many churches.
How? Why is it there are so many churches in Italy? And these buildings that the Romans built, why don't they fix them up? You know, you will see from the things that I'm saying that the state of mind of a Canadian traveler is very different from the state of mind of an Italian. We sometimes joke about Siena and we say as Canadians, you know this big campo